Let's continue our journey. By now, you've started to recognize the negative thought patterns that fuel your anxiety, those unhelpful loops that make everything feel overwhelming. The good news, you're not stuck with those thoughts. In this lesson, we're going to tackle how to challenge and reframe them, giving you the tools to change the story your mind tells you. Challenging negative thoughts isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about finding balances, learning to see things as they really are, not as your anxiety paints them. By doing this, you take back control and you start to shape a healthier, more constructive mindset. It all starts with awareness. When you notice an anxious thought creeping in, pause, write it down if you can. For example, maybe you're thinking, I'm going to fail this project and everybody will judge me. Capturing it on paper lets you step back and see it for what it is, a thought, not a fact. Once you've identified the thought, the next step is to challenge it. Ask yourself, what evidence do I have that this is true? What evidence do I have that it's not true? Anxiety thrives on assumptions, but when you put those assumptions under the microscope, they often fall apart. For instance, has every project you've ever worked on failed? Probably not. Do you actually know what others think of you? Most likely, you're filling in the blanks with worst case scenarios. Now let's take a step further and reframe the thought. Instead of, I'm going to fail this project, try something like, this project is challenging, but I've handled tough situations before and I'll do my best. Or, even if I make a mistake, it's an opportunity to learn and grow. This isn't about forcing positivity. It's about finding a perspective that's rooted in reality and kindness. Next, focus on what you can control. Anxiety loves to pull you into what ifs and things outside of your influence. Refocusing on actionable steps brings clarity. Ask yourself, what can I do right now to improve the situation? What's one small step I can make to move forward? For example, if you're overwhelmed by a looming deadline, create a simple plan. Break the task into smaller steps and tackle them one at a time. This shift from worry to action can make a huge difference. Remember, like we talked about in the breathing techniques lesson, your breath can be a powerful ally here. When challenging your thought feels overwhelming, take a moment to breathe deeply. This simple act signals your body to calm down, making it easier to think clearly and engage with these strategies. Over time, reframing becomes a habit, a natural response to anxious thoughts. But, like any skill, it takes practice. One way to build this habit is by using a thought record. Here's how it works. Your first step, write down the situation that triggered your anxiety. Second, note the thought that came up. Third, identify the cognitive distortion, maybe catastrophizing, overgeneralization, or all or nothing thinking. Fourth, challenge the thought with evidence for and against it. Fifth, reframe it with a more balanced perspective. For example, here's how a thought record might look in practice. Let's say the situation is that you missed a deadline. The initial thought might be, I'm terrible at my job, and my boss will fire me. Notice how this thought feels absolute and overwhelming. It's a classic example of overgeneralization and catastrophizing. Now, let's challenge that thought. First, look for evidence supporting it. Yes, you did miss the deadline, but then look for evidence against it. You've met deadlines before, and your boss hasn't expressed dissatisfaction with your overall performance. Finally, reframe the thought into something more balanced, like this. Missing a deadline doesn't define my abilities. I'll communicate with my boss, explain what happened, and create a plan to stay on track. This simple process of examining and reframing a thought helps shift your mindset from panic to problem solving. This process may feel awkward at first, but it's like strengthening a muscle. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Research shows that regularly challenging and reframing thoughts not only reduces anxiety, but also rewires the brain to respond more calmly to stress. Think of it this way. Anxiety is like wearing dark sunglasses. It skews everything you see. But when you challenge and reframe your thoughts, it's like taking off those sunglasses. Suddenly, the world becomes clearer, brighter, and less intimidating. You're not alone in this process, and you're already making progress by being here and engaging with these lessons. Each time you catch a negative thought and reframe it, you're taking a step toward the calmer, more confident version of yourself. What thought are you ready to challenge today? Let's keep building on this momentum together.